Moving to Russia, Ukraine. Russia today said that they set their 2025 goal to occupy 4 Ukrainian regions. Can you give us a sort of update on your stated goal of providing congressionally approved aid? How many percentage of it have already been materialized, and how long do you think Ukrainians will be able to fight back with those resources before they run out in 2025?
So we believe that the resources that we have already provided them, and that we are still on track to provide them before the end of the administration, give them the equipment and the material they need to fight through the end of 2025. As it pertains to how much of that is out the door and how much remains, these are obviously Pentagon drawdowns or Pentagon stocks. I'd refer you to them to answer that question.
And on North Korean soldiers, they report that the number of casualties. Given that, are you observing any new let's say, tranche of North Korean soldiers coming from?
I don't have any new announcements to make today about new North Korean soldiers that have traveled to Russia, but we continue to assess that's a possibility, but it's not something we've seen as to date. We have, as I said yesterday, seen North Korean soldiers deployed to the front lines in Kursk, and we have seen them sustain casualties, both killed in action and wounded.
Thank you. I have 2 more on South Caucasus. Azerbaijan, there's a trial today. They started basically the court hearing against Farid Mehralizadeh, Radio Free Europe reporter. You did address his case previously. Radio Free Europe president today called the charges against him baseless. Do you have any reaction, any comment?
We continue to be greatly concerned about that case and call on Azerbaijan to respect the human rights of everyone in the country, and certainly to respect media freedoms.
Thank you. Finally, on Georgia, who is the current president of Georgia, in your opinion?
Yeah, you know who the duly elected president is, Alex. I usually decline to try and answer gotcha questions. I'm going to do so here.
I mean, you did say...
Go ahead.
Matt.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thank you very much. On November 26, 12 PTI workers were butchered in Islamabad with snipers. Congressman John James has said that this was done by a government. A government which does something like this cannot be a legitimate government. In past, it's been whatever days, I have not heard any press release or comment from you about just straight butchering of Pakistani citizens in the capital.
So I will tell you that we have always been quite clear, and every time you ask me a question about this, I'm quite clear that we want to see human rights and the rule of law respected inside Pakistan. We make that clear publicly. We make that clear in our engagements with the government of Pakistan.
Okay. Just before walking in here to this briefing, I was informed by my colleague that the ministers in Pakistan just got 900% increase in their salaries. Just a month ago, I asked the finance minister here in Washington, D.C., that this is it is totally unacceptable in a country where there is such poverty, where they come to the U.S. and then, they beg for money. The rulers are corrupt. Shehbaz Sharif is a known corrupt. I've been writing about him personally for 25 years, and you then one day calling his niece a milestone late.
I know there's a question. I know there's a question in there somewhere. I hope that we will get to it soon.
But I hope so. What's your comment about that?
On the
despite
pay,
U.S. helping a nation in such hard times, these rulers increased their own salaries by 900%.
I think the appropriate pay of government officials inside Pakistan is a question for the people of Pakistan and the government of Pakistan to answer, not a question for the United States. We don't typically opine on the relative pay of government officials anywhere around the world, and that of course will be our policy here as well.
Just last one about journalism and your podium, you being here. We have one Pakistani journalist that was killed. He applied to the U.S. visa, and he didn't get it. On the other hand, I heard Secretary at the Foreign Affairs Committee the other day about his legacy, and he was proud of the fact that he brought 100,000, the largest evacuation done. And I totally agree with it. But it was of a military which surrendered in a night, right? They were brought here, and congressmen raised questions about their vetting. A journalist applies to a visa to the U.S. Embassy, doesn't get the visa, who's a journalist for 30 years.
Right.
Please, your department and I really need your support for Pakistani journalists who have
Let me
been
just
facing
say,
challenges.
I, for quite obvious reasons, can't litigate the disposition of any one particular visa from the podium. I obviously don't know anything about that particular case or why a visa was or wasn't granted. We don't typically talk about those matters in public anyway when it comes to individual cases for obvious privacy reasons. I can tell you we are proud of the work that we have done to provide visas to refugees, to dissidents, to journalists, to those who expose corruption all around the world, and those who fight for freedom, those who are fleeing tyranny, and we will continue to do so.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you so much.
Thank you. What political and legal system do you believe would best ensure the protection of the rights of all ethnic and religious groups in Syria, including the Kurds, your ally? Do you consider federalism to be a suitable solution in Syria?
So that's not a decision for the United States to make. That is a decision for the Syrian people to make. One of the things that we have been incredibly clear about, I was going to say since the fall of the Assad regime, but really when you go back to the adoption of UN Security Council Resolution 2254, the thing that it called for was for the Assad regime to actually deal with the aspirations and demands of the Syrian people, something that he never did, and it's the chief reason for his downfall today. And so what we believe is important is that the Syrian people decide the type of government and a constitution, a framework that represents their aspirations, that represents the kind of normal compromises and a give and take that happen in civil society. And so when you see us outline principles, chief among those principles is that the path forward needs to be inclusive of all the Syrian people, that it needs to be transparent, and that it needs to be accountable, and ultimately give the Syrian people the right to answer those very legitimate questions.
Following question. Do you continue to support the Kurds as your ally in Syria?
Yes, we do.
Can I just get back to Russia-Ukraine?
Yeah.
The killing, the appears to be an assassination of the chemical weapons chief, General Krylov. Want to see if, first of all, the Kremlin is saying that Ukrainian allies are to blame for this. Do you have a response specifically to that, or more broadly to his killing?
I don't have any assessment on that explosion. I can tell you that the United States was not aware of it in advance and was not involved.
And do you have any view on his killing, and was he a legitimate target, regardless whether the U.S. was involved?
I don't have an assessment. It's not something that we were involved in. Obviously, he was a general who was involved in a number of atrocities. He was involved in the use of chemical weapons against Ukrainian military. It's something the United States has publicly assessed before, that the Russian military under his in a unit under his command has used riot agents in violation to this individual incident. I don't have any comment.
Okay, just a very different topic. Could I ask you? You've obviously spoken quite a bit about military aid to Israel. Dawn, the activist group founded by the late Jamal Khashoggi, is announcing a lawsuit saying that the U.S. is violating the administration is violating the Leahy Act, the Leahy laws when it comes to military aid to Israel. I know it's probably a pending case, but do you have anything specifically to say about that?
No, I wasn't aware of that case, but in any event, I defer to the Department of Justice, who typically requests that we not comment on cases that they're going to have to respond to in court.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Recently, an influential advisor to Dr. Yunus, who was portrayed on U.S. soil as the mastermind behind Prime Minister Hasina's downfall, made a controversial social media post advocating for the expansion of Bangladesh territory by annexing part of India, including West Bengal, Tripura, and Assam. Such remarks could pose risk to the regional stability in South Asia. Given the individual very close to associate with Dr. Yunus, does the U.S. government view this statement with concern, and would it consider advising against such rhetoric to support peace and stability in the region?
I will admit I wasn't aware of that comment. I don't know anything about it other than you reading it to me now, and I'm going to follow a general rule that when I've not seen a comment and seen it in its proper context, I'm going to decline to comment on it here.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And I have another two short question. One is about given the Bangladesh International Crimes Tribunal ban on former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's speeches, which appears to violate constitutional right and suppress of free speech. Your comments on that?
I don't have any comment on that.
And on the press freedom,
sure.
last
Yeah,
question.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, there are over 30 journalists who are jailed for last over 60 days without even getting any bail. And already a committee to protect journalists, Reporters Without Borders, and many human rights organizations already sent their petition and letters, and also sent by the European Union ambassadors they made to Dr. Yunus. Will you send any statement to get them at least the bail, because they are in the jail and they are in condemned cells, actually?
So we have been consistent in dealing with this matter with the government of Bangladesh, and that is to make clear to this government of Bangladesh, as we made clear to the previous government of Bangladesh, that we believe media freedoms ought to be upheld, the freedom of the press ought to be respected, and that such cases ought to be dealt with consistent with the rule of law and respect for the press.
Thank you so much. Finally, can I ask on China?
You said last one last
time.
I'm so
sorry.
Go ahead.
It's holiday and
it's almost Christmas.
How
go
do you assess? Thank you. That's the final. How do you assess the imposition of sanctions and sanctions between nations like China visa restriction on U.S. personnel and U.S. visa restriction on Chinese individuals in terms of their compliance with international law?
I'm not sure how to answer that. Give it to me again.
That China imposed visa restriction on U.S. personnel.
I see. You're referring to the visa restrictions that they imposed last week. First of all, I'll tell you, I'm not aware of who they imposed those visa restrictions on. It's hard for me to comment on them. I can tell you that it will not deter us at all from taking the appropriate actions to hold China accountable for its concerning behavior across a wide range of areas, as we have done since the outset of this administration.
Thank you so much. Happy holidays.
Yeah.
My first question, does the USA still put this $10 million as a prize for Al-Julani, or it's not longer valid? You put a prize for $10 million on Al-Julani. Is it still valid? Or?
It is.
So if hypothetically someone arrested him and give him to the military base in the USA, he or she's gonna take the $10 million?
I'm not going to deal with hypotheticals, but the rewards for justice, the reward that we issued through our Rewards for Justice program is still valid and outstanding.
Okay.
You should also make clear that the reward can't be claimed by a government official.
Yeah, correct.
So if you send someone in to Syria and he or she meets with Jelani,
I didn't think the suggestion was look, when it comes to information about his whereabouts, I think at this point his whereabouts are well known. We don't need reports from government officials.
Exactly, but I mean, no one from the government is going to get the 10
from our government. Yeah. No, I would be surprised if a State Department employee applied for that reward.
Okay. My second question. You mentioned to Mr. Said about that Hamas hosted 7 American so far. Today in this event, Dawn supported Palestinian family to sue Department of State for not applying Leahy law. Mr. Charles Palha, he's a former director for security and human rights in Department of State. He mentioned Aisha Nouri case. And he said from his expertise that based on this law, if any case like this, like Aisha Nouri, USA should, according to the law, to suspend the aid until the final decision. And we saw Israeli, according to CNN conclusion and many other organizations, they killed Shireen Abu Akleh, the former American Palestinian journalist for Al Jazeera. And now with Aisha Nouri, there is a kind of consensus and conclusion from multiple different organizations, human rights law, etc. They accusing Israel. And they mentioned as well, even George Paul, that you haven't ever politely hold. They didn't suspend any military aid
hold
to
on one second,
Israel.
just because it is taking a while to get to the question. This is all in reference to the lawsuit that was filed that I was asked about earlier.
No, like I'm asking, like why USA didn't take Aisha Nouri case and Shireen Arafat case seriously and suspended military aid to Israel.
We have taken those cases.
And they are American.
We have taken those cases extremely seriously. If you heard me yesterday when I talked at this podium, I talked at length about our interactions with the government of Israel, about most recently the Aisha Nouri case, where we have made clear to them that her death was unacceptable, that it should have been avoided, it should have never happened in the first place, that we want to see the results of their investigation, and we want to see them change their rules of engagement.
Okay, last question about Syria. What the measurement, not timetable, measurement that should the new authority or like HTS, they have to take so USA remove them from the terrorist group, like the measurement, not like just the principle.
So, the principles show you exactly what we are looking to measure against, and that is an inclusive process moving forward. That is ensuring that Syria is not a base for terrorism and does not pose a threat to its neighbors. It's ensuring that humanitarian aid is allowed into Syria, and it is ensuring that the rights and freedoms of all the Syrian people are respected. We've laid those principles out. I think we've spoken to them pretty clearly.
One of them normalizing with Israel or not?
What's that?
One of the conditions is normalizing with Israel.
No,
is this not a condition?
No. If you just look at the principles, they're pretty well outlined. We talk about the fact that Syria should not pose a threat to its neighbors. Israel is one of its neighbors. So is Lebanon. So is Iraq. So is Jordan. But normalizing relations, no, that's not one of the conditions. Go ahead in the back.
Sure. Thank you, Matt. The Arakan army has taken control of the Rakhine state and Bangladesh-Burma border. How you're assessing the situation and the fate of the Rohingya refugees?
So we are following this development closely. We remain concerned by the conflict and its potential to undermine regional stability and security. Helping resolve the Rohingya refugee crisis remains a priority for us. The people and government of Bangladesh have shown generosity in hosting Rohingya refugees who have fled persecution in Burma, and we will continue to work with Bangladesh to support Rohingya and members of other vulnerable communities from Burma who have taken refuge there.
And a follow-up on Bangladesh. The interim government head, Nobel laureate Dr. Muhammad Yunus, has declared the general elections will be happening late 2025 or early 2026. How do you see the declaration of the general elections?
Let me take that back and get you an answer to it. Yeah.
On Iran.
Sure.
Forgive me if you've been asked this earlier, but there's an Iranian-American journalist, Reza Valizadeh, who apparently was sentenced to 10 years in prison. He used to work for Radio Farda, the U.S.-funded Persian language outlet. Can you confirm that sentence, and does the U.S. have any reaction?
So we are aware of the reports that Reza Valizadeh has been sentenced to 10 years in prison in Iran. We strongly condemn this sentencing and call for his immediate release and the release of all political prisoners in Iran. The Iranian government has repeatedly suppressed press freedom through threats, intimidation, detentions, forced confessions, and the use of violence against journalists in Iran. And we remind U.S. citizens of the warning on our website that has existed for years and years. Do not travel to Iran due to the risk of kidnapping and the arbitrary arrest and detention of U.S. citizens.
And his nationality, or is he a permanent resident?
He's a dual U.S. citizen.
Oh, he's a
dual U.S. citizen. Yeah, dual citizen. Yeah,
Matt, a while ago you said that the conflict channel for Gaza would meet sometime in early December. Have they actually met?
They have not met. The meeting had to be rescheduled. It's happening early next week.
And what commitments are you looking for beyond what's already been? Are there new commitments?
So we want to get access to information about a number of incidents that we have concerns about, some of which we have raised in real time and we have received information about, but the point of setting up this channel was so we can go to Israel not on an ad hoc basis, but in real time, and have a channel set up where we can raise our concerns and get answers to those concerns.
Is this going to be in person or virtual?
I don't know. I don't know the answer.
At what level?
Assistant Secretary level.
So Barbara?
No, but another assistant secretary. One of the assistant secretaries who, well, I'll leave it at that, at the assistant secretary level. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So when you said you have ability to engage with the organizations like HTS and other terrorist organizations, so can we believe that in past you have engagements and conversation with that terrorist groups, even when you have active military operations against them, specifically Afghan Taliban, ISIS, and Al Qaeda?
Yeah, we have the ability. So I'm not aware of any engagements with Al Qaeda, but we do have the ability to engage with designated terrorist groups when it is in our interest. We have engagements with the Taliban to advance United States national interests, and we have engagements with HTS to advance United States national interests, including, of course, finding and returning home the American journalist Austin Tice.
Thank you. Then it's been reported that State Department officials had some meetings with some Pakistani officials who've been in Texas for a meeting with a jailed Pakistani prisoner. She had charges attacking U.S. personnel in Afghanistan province Ghazni. That is Afia Siddiqui, serving 86 years prison in Texas jail. So, question is, President Biden last week pardoned many of prisoners. Some of them were top priority prisoners having spying charges. So, with the Afia Siddiqui matter, previously U.S. raised Shakil Afridi matter in exchange of prisoners. So, is there any legal challenges you have, or you have priorities? What is difference and what is hurdle you have?
In what sense? I don't.
Regarding the Afia Siddiqui case.
Yeah, no, but what do you mean in terms of legal challenges?
Legal challenges, like in past you asked Dr. Shakil Afridi exchange of Dr. Afia Siddiqui. Yeah. So is that still conditioned with Pakistan?
I would refer you to the Department of Justice to speak to that.
One last.
Let me go to Nike and then we'll wrap for today.
Matt, I would like to ask a question. One of the worst humanitarian crises now in Sudan that has received very little attention. Do you have anything on Human Rights Watch report that says Sudanese RSF is accused of rape and sexual slavery? And I asked this because I understand Secretary is going to New York this week, and one of the topics will be Sudan.
Yeah.
Talk about where we are.
You were right that there is no conflict in the world that deserves more attention and gets less from the broad public than the ongoing civil war in Sudan, which has had just horrific effects for the Sudanese people. Lack of access to food, war crimes and atrocities committed by both the SAF and the RSF. I can tell you that Secretary Blinken will be chairing a session of the United Nations Security Council on Thursday in New York to continue to draw attention to the crisis in Sudan, but also to push for a way to resolve it. As you know, we have been pushing for some time for a ceasefire, and the parties have been willing to agree to that. At various times, one party or the other was somewhat more forward-leaning, but ultimately both sides have refused to agree to a ceasefire that would end that conflict. We continue to push for broader humanitarian aid, short of getting a ceasefire that can get us on a path to ending the conflict. We believe the most important thing that you can do is to at least try to alleviate the suffering of people on the ground. And so you have seen us flow millions and millions of dollars in humanitarian assistance into Sudan, and we'll continue to do that, and we'll have more announcements to make in that regard, and we'll continue to work with donors around the world to try to bring more humanitarian assistance in to the people who are suffering from this conflict that they did not start, but they are the ongoing victims of. And with that, wrap for today. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.